Hello, this is Michael Silva. In this episode, we are going to talk about the Request for Proposal, or RFP process. Your need to deal with RFPs depends a lot on your area of practice. For example, if you are a security consultant who deals primarily with small to medium-sized, privately owned companies, you may rarely, if ever, have to deal with RFPs. On the other hand, if your primary market is public entities such as public schools, government agencies, and public utilities, you will probably have to deal with RFPs on a very regular basis. Some larger corporations also use RFPs when seeking security consulting services. So even if you work exclusively within the private sector, you may occasionally need to respond to RFPs. RFPs are used by clients seeking security consulting services. The RFP will specify the services that the client is seeking, specify the qualifications and experience that the consultant must have, and ask that qualified consultants submit a proposal. The RFP process varies from company to company and agency to agency, but the process can include up to 10 steps. Here is a summary of the steps in sequential order. Step number 1, initial contact with proposers. Public agencies are generally required by law to post a public notification when an RFP is issued, particularly if a project is above a certain dollar value. In many cases, this will be the only way that the consultant will learn that an RFP has been issued. We will talk in more detail about how to find RFP opportunities in a later episode of this series. Sometimes a public agency that posts a public notice will also reach out to known consultants to make them aware that an RFP has been posted. This is often done to encourage as many consultants as possible to respond, but you cannot rely on this. In most cases, it is up to the consultant to see the notice on their own. Many larger corporations and some public agencies who issue RFPs do a little homework first. As part of this homework, the client identifies potentially qualified consultants, learns what types of consulting services are available, and then notifies them of the upcoming RFP. In some cases, a client representative will speak personally with each consultant to briefly confirm that they are indeed interested and eligible to participate in the RFP process. Some clients at this point will require that the consultant sign a non-disclosure agreement, NDA, in order to participate further in the RFP process. Step number 2, issuance of a formal RFP. During this step, the RFP itself is issued. The RFP includes a description of the desired scope of work, locations where the work will be performed, the timeline in which the client hopes to accomplish the work, and the work products that the consultant is expected to deliver. The RFP will also provide specific instructions on how the consultant's proposal is to be formatted and what information is to be included. Most RFPs will also include a sample of the agreement that the consultant will be expected to sign if awarded the job, as well as numerous forms that need to be filled out and submitted with the proposal. Most RFPs also include a statement of the criteria that will be used to score the proposals. This typically involves the use of a point system where points are awarded based on the proposer's qualifications, previous experience, project approach, price, and other such factors. Step number 3, pre-proposal conference, also called a pre-bid conference. In most cases, the client will hold a pre-proposal conference shortly after the RFP is issued. The purpose of this conference is to verbally explain the RFP requirements to potential proposers and give them an opportunity to ask questions. Proposers may also be given a tour of the client's facilities so that they can see where the requested work will be performed. The proposer's attendance at pre-proposal conferences can be optional or mandatory. If attendance is optional, proposers can decide for themselves if they want to attend. If attendance is mandatory, the proposer must attend in order to be eligible to submit a proposal. Attending the pre-proposal conference is a great way to gauge the level of interest in the project and to find out which other consultants may be competing for the job. Many consultants also use these conferences as an opportunity to meet other consultants and explore possible partnering arrangements. There is usually a written sign-in sheet at pre-proposal conferences. Most clients are happy to provide a copy of this sheet to all attendees to allow them to get in touch with one another for the purposes of teaming. When attending the pre-proposal conference, pay close attention to the conversations between the client representatives and other consultants in the room. You may sometimes get a clue that the client has some type of previous relationship with another consultant, and this may or may not have an effect on the RFP process. Step number 4. Most clients require that all questions that proposers have about the RFP be submitted in writing. The exception is the questions asked at the pre-proposal conference, which are taken down in writing by a client representative. The process allows for questions to be submitted up until an established cutoff date. After this date, no more questions will be accepted. The answers to all questions are answered by the client in writing and are distributed to all proposers at the same time. Step number 5, issuance of addendums. The client will typically issue one or more addendums to the RFP during the course of the RFP process. Addendums are used to provide answers to any questions asked by proposers and to correct any mistakes or misunderstandings discovered in the RFP. The goal is to provide all proposers with the same information. If one proposer asks a question, both the question and the answer are sent to all proposers in the form of an addendum. The last addendum is typically issued at least 7 days prior to the proposal due date. Proposers are required to acknowledge receipt of all addendums in their proposal. Step number 6, proposal due date. The RFP will establish a firm date and time by which all proposals must be received. It is the responsibility of the proposer to see that the proposal arrives by the established deadline, regardless of the delivery method used. Most clients will not consider proposals received after the deadline, regardless of the circumstances that caused the delay. Step number 7, proposal opening and scoring. After the proposals are received, they are opened and evaluated by the client. This is usually done in private, but sometimes a public agency may hold a meeting where proposals are opened publicly and read aloud. The client will typically use a selection committee to evaluate and score each proposal. The selection committee is usually made up of between 3 and 5 employees who have a stake in the outcome of the consulting project, as well as one or more members of the client's purchasing department. The first step in the evaluation process is to determine whether or not the proposer fully complied with all requirements stated in the RFP. If so, the proposal is deemed to be responsive and is set aside for further evaluation. If a proposer has left required information out of their proposal or has not fully complied with the instructions in the RFP, their proposal is deemed to be non-responsive. Non-responsive proposals are almost always disqualified immediately and not subjected to any kind of further evaluation. All responsive proposals are then evaluated by the selection committee using the scoring criteria that was stated in the RFP. Points are awarded in each category and totaled up to give each proposal a numeric score. In some cases, the selection committee has the authority to immediately award the contract to the highest scoring proposer. In other cases, the process may require additional evaluation of the highest ranking firms before a final selection is made. Typically, the top 3 highest ranking proposers are chosen for further evaluation. The list of the top scoring proposers is often called the short list, and the consultants on this list are often known as the shortlisted firms. Step number 8. After the short list has been created, all proposers are usually notified by the client. Proposers not on the short list usually know that this is the end of the line for them and that there is likely no chance that they will be awarded the contract. Proposers who are on the short list know that they are still under consideration for the project and should be prepared to be interviewed. Step number 9, interviews with shortlisted firms. The shortlisted firms are asked to come in and make a presentation to the selection committee. Committee members have the opportunity to ask questions and get a better feel for the consulting team and how they operate. Shortlisted firms may also be asked to bring examples of their previous work to the interview. Step number 10, final selection and contract award. The selection committee makes a final selection of a consultant based on the interviews with the shortlisted firms. The client's purchasing department then begins a process to award the contract to the chosen firm. All shortlisted firms that are not chosen are then notified that someone else has been selected.